Hey. Welcome back to two-time Radio Disney award-winning The People's Duchess. So glad to be here today. My apologies. I was supposed to be here last night, but if you saw my post, you know that uh, I had something I had to go and take care of last night. So here we are. Here we are today. I want to welcome all the members, all the newbies, the OGs, everyone. Welcome one, welcome all. Ernie, cool. Welcome to the chat. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Saturday, hun. So, yeah, by now, you guys have all seen Meghan's and Harry's viral twerking video. She was pregnant in the hospital. She was, I guess, a week overdue. So she had to do whatever she could to get the baby out. And of course, they recommend dancing and trying to, get your body moving to induce that labor. And this video, as of this morning, I mean, it already went absolutely viral in the first, I don't know, 24 hours. But let me check and see what it's at right now. I mean, it was at like 34 million views the last time I saw it. So I'm just going to update and see where it's at now. Oh, you know what? She doesn't even have the numbers on there. Okay. She doesn't have well, let me see if I can get the view count by looking at it here. 38 million. So as of right now, it's at 38 million views. It's gone absolutely viral. Everybody and their mama has not only seen and commented, but also posted their own pregnancy twerk dance videos. This was a huge trend several years ago. Sharkeisha's baby mama, was it Sharkeisha? I hope I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry if I'm not. But yeah, it was like a massive trend several years ago. And just like Harry and Meghan, they're going to do something and instantly make it viral yet again. So people have been posting their own like pregnancy twerk videos from the hospital. And it is very endearing. And yeah, of course, we've gotten some of the quote unquote haters take on it. I would never, and you could never. That's the thing about it, honey. You could never. You don't have the dexterity. You don't have like the physical dexterity. You folks are so stiff, so twig-like that you'd snap in half at the waist if you attempted something like this. So yeah, you could never because you don't have it. You either have it or you don't, and y'all don't have it, period. On the other hand, there have been some surprising commenters that have supported Meghan, including some of the quote unquote loose women panel. I just saw earlier this morning a Fox News panelist that was also pregnant defend Meghan and say that this is very endearing and cute. So yeah, it was the twerk heard around the world. And she followed that up yesterday with a post of them going to Disneyland for Lilibet's birthday. And it was just so magical. And I'm so glad for them that they got to do this. Let me see if I can cue up that video. Here we go. Obviously, Disneyland is like a magical place for not just children. I know so many Disney adults, so many people who grew up on Walt Disney and Disneyland and Disney World. And I think that the effects of it are long lasting. The princesses that we all grew up with, the stories that most of us grew up with, very endearing, very nostalgic for a lot of people. So this video also brought all the oohs and ahs and the good feels. And I just feel like, thank goodness that they're finally able to live their lives as I feel Diana would have not only lived, but wanted them to live. This is, to me, all of her dreams realized through her son and his children. Who knows where Diana would have been by now, but everyone can probably safely say that she would have been living life on her own terms. She definitely wanted to do that while she was still a member of the royal family. And she said, admittedly, that it got her into a lot of trouble wanting to live life on her own terms in the royal family. So, yeah, it did, but thankfully she was able to get out of the fold, and thankfully Harry is carrying on her legacy so beautifully. Everyone knows how much Diana loved her children and wanted her children to have as much normalcy as possible. And I think Harry and Meghan have successfully done that. I mean, Harry is every bit the doting father that we have expected him to be. He was raised within the royal confines, yes, but he always had that heart of someone who was not. He always had the spirit of not just like a regular person, but someone who like deeply cared, right, about like the world and the things that were happening in the world, and his interpretation of himself versus what the royals tried to paint him as and what the media painted him as. So unfortunately, from a very early age, Charles decided that he was going to trade Harry's image for that of his lover, his mistress. And that included, selling him out to the papers all the time, telling the papers that he was not that bright, that he was unintelligent, that he had, I guess, a drug problem and stuff like that. Like saying that he went to rehab, took him to rehab, and all those, sensational headlines that turned out not to be true. I mean, they were all just a cover for getting Camilla's image rehabilitated in the eyes of the public and of the press. So extremely unfortunate. But I did want to talk about the generational curses that Prince Harry is breaking in this family. So we're all extremely aware of Charles and his rocky, sometimes icy relationship with his parents. And Diana, oddly enough, interestingly enough, also had the same type of relationship with her parents. So it wasn't always like that. But the story goes that Diana had this stepmother who she was not extremely fond of. The stepmother came in after her parents divorced and was kind of like just a thorn in everyone's side. From what I understood of the research that I did, she was very domineering. She was very I don't want to speak like I know her because these are just what the historians have said. But from what I've seen of her, she seemed very self-centered, like, and not in the good way, right? Because it's good to center yourself in your own life. I've always said this: self-centered is not an insult. You should be self-centered. It's your life. You should be the main character in your life. So how else should you live except to be self-centered? She is self-involved, is what I should say. She did not care about anything else except what she wanted and how she wanted it. And it just seems like she came in as this very domineering energy that the kids did not appreciate. I also learned that her parents kind of got eloped, like not eloped. They married in like a regular like court setting, but like didn't tell the kids. So like they just like woke up one day and their dad was married to this woman, and for obvious reasons, they just didn't appreciate it. So I do have some videos I want to kind of go through, and then we will get into the cycles of both Charles and his parents, Diana and her parents, and then how Prince Harry is kind of doing things differently from each sets of parents, because he really inherited like a whole lot of shenanigans and craziness. Like it's crazy how bad those relationships were from both his parents' sides. So it's even that much more impressive that Prince Harry has been able to overcome those challenges and break these generational curses that have been in his family since time immemorial. Steph C, welcome to the chat. Happy Saturday. Thank you so much for joining us, hon. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, the first video is, I guess when Raine, who is Diana's stepmother, came into their life, and I'm gonna play that, and then we're gonna chat about it.
Anna was 15 years old. Althorpe, her family home, was about to be invaded. Raine had divorced Gerald Legg and married Diana's father, Johnny Spencer. It was a low-key affair at Westminster's Caxton Hall, and not even Diana and her siblings had been informed.
In retrospect, the relatively secret marriage of Raine and Johnny was an appalling idea, and I think the children felt completely let down. How could their father not tell them? It was a great, great mistake, and that's really when the big trouble started.
The Spencer children soon made their feelings clear. At her first family Christmas, under the tree, was a carefully wrapped book for Raine. It was the story of Marie Antoinette, the French queen who was swiftly beheaded, signed and dated in Raine's honor.
Well, the role of stepmother, which is, of course, enshrined in our fairy tales as the wicked stepmother. You never have the nice stepmother. It's a very difficult job to get right, because I think as far as she was concerned, any territory she was on was her territory.
I'm sorry, that makes me laugh every time. Not they gave her a book about Marie Antoinette. Not the children got together and gave her a book on Marie Antoinette, like hintity hint, hint, hint. That part gagged me. I was like, where do kids even think of that? But these are royal children, and of course they would have had that history available to them, would have been taught that history as their own personal histories. So, well, they weren't royal, but they were aristocratic. So they would have definitely been taught that history. So there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of animosity, even from before they got together. Diana's dad, Charles, and his first wife, her mother, they had this very bitter separation and divorce, and ultimately her mom lost custody to her dad. So, I think we've all kind of been through that. My parents went through that. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience as parents have had the same experience. We've all gone through, well, not all of us, thankfully, but a lot of us, millions of us, have gone through something exactly like this, a early childhood separation of the parents, and a lot of animosity involved with the custody arrangements. And Diana was no different, unfortunately. So Raine steps into their life. She's she's like crazy. I hate to use that word. Let me not use that word. She wasn't crazy. She was just, again, domineering. And they did not like that they had to be tricked, basically, because they knew the kids were not for this marriage. So time went on, and then her father ultimately passes. And well, I'm gonna just let y'all see the video because I couldn't even describe it to you.
The Earl's death was a tragic shock for his family. His wife and his son and heir, seen leaving the North London hospital tonight, were not with him when he died. They believed he was recovering from a bout of pneumonia.
Afraid because we all thought he was fine. My stepmother was at home overseeing something, and I was at home with my family, and I very much regret, and it's a matter of regret for the rest of us, that nobody was with him when he died. He died instantly.
Raine had been at Althorpe overseeing guests at a private function. When news of Johnny's heart attack came through, she had rushed to London, but it had been too late.
I went up to Althorpe. I had to ring the bell, and I had to ask, I need to get some clothes to send down to London, and I was escorted to the wardrobe room by the then housekeeper. And I said to her, what do you think I'm going to do? Put a Van Dyke in the suitcase? For goodness sake.
Johnny had wanted Raine to have at least 6 months to stay on at Althorpe while she sorted her affairs. But in time-honored fashion, it was the new Earl who now ruled Diana's brother Charles.
She was out immediately. I did go the next day to pack more stuff for her. And again, I was escorted by the housekeeper.
By now, Diana and her brother Charles were back at Althorpe, personally overseeing matters.
There was lots of sort of personal bits and pieces, and I was stopped by taking the suitcases out, and there was a Louis Vuitton suitcase, which was Lord Spencer's. It had JS on it, and I'd got another one with RS on it, but they were their suitcases, and they grabbed the suitcases and said, they don't belong to you, they're my father's. And the contents were stuffed into black bin bags, thrown out on the tarmac.
The Spencer children had finally got rid of their stepmother, and the 9th Earl set about wiping away every drop of rain from his family home.
My taste and my former stepmother's taste, it doesn't coincide very often. If you are tackling a house like this, you do need expert advice, and some people are better at taking advice than others.
Bloop. He was not a fan. They were not fans of her. So it's really surprising when you peel back the layers and understand like the emotions that went into everything. And then meanwhile, in public, I think you saw at the beginning of that video, they had to put on this face, and Raine was just smiling, walking out of that hospital. I couldn't quite put my finger on why that was so unsettling to me, but as we go on here, y'all will see it's so disturbing. But they weren't fans. So her birth mother, Frances, they went through a whole lot. And then you know how like that is once you go through that separation, you're not immediately going to like the new woman. But I have a feeling that they tried, and perhaps there was something about her that just did not sit right with them. It couldn't possibly have just been that their father remarried, because a lot of people get remarried and a lot of people have great relationships with their step parent. So in my opinion, I feel like there was probably something about her character itself that did not sit well with these kids. And I think in these aristocratic circles, she was probably, the same type of aristo woman that was kind of a little bit cold, kind of a little bit distant, and yeah, kind of a little self-serving. And maybe they didn't appreciate that. These are all speculations, of course. These are all just my personal opinions from the research that I've done on this, but I feel like that's probably what happened here, because children are so sweet. They're so, kind, and they don't really they only know what they see. You know what I mean? They can only pick up on what you show them and what you give them. So if kids don't like you and then they persistently don't like you throughout adulthood, there's something there beyond, oh, you took the place of my mom, or you took my mom away from us, or whatever the case might be. Like, there's more to this story than just being the step parent. So this is a generation of animosity and a lot of bad blood. When Diana's father ultimately did pass, it was so unsettling to watch this next clip, because it shows exactly how Raine really is and how she thinks. And I tied it back to why I was so unsettled watching that first video of them walking out of the hospital. If you notice Raine's face, she was all smiles. And that is kind of a theme that persisted throughout everything. It was just a persistent thing with her to just be giddy in the most inappropriate of scenarios. And yeah, I just got to show y'all the clip too, because it's so unsettling. There we go. So here they are at her dad's funeral. It's kind of messed up, and Raine is she seems a bit over the moon for me. And Diana, you see her look down, she just, hold on, let's go back. Let's go back a little bit. So Raine is just giddy. And it's not like, okay, you know how at funerals you sometimes look at somebody and they say something to you and then you smile and try to keep yourself together. She's just smiling. She's just smiling. Her whole demeanor is just happy-go-lucky. And it's like, well, why are you, I don't understand. Why are you so, you seem to be enjoying it, is what I'm saying. Like, she seemed to be really happy that day, and no one can convince me that she was doing this because of some kind of like, oh, so whatever. Because the second picture is her at Diana's funeral in 97. Same giddy face, same plastered on smile. She did not, in my opinion, care for these people. She didn't care about her daddy. When her daddy died, this is how she showed up to that funeral, happy as all get out. When Princess Diana died, this is how she showed up to that funeral, happy as all get out. It is so unsettling. And again, I'm trying to find the grace. I'm trying to find the reason. I'm trying to find any excuse that would explain why this woman was over the moon at both her husband's and her former daughter and stepdaughter's funerals. But I cannot, like, I literally, nobody was smiling at Diana's funeral in particular. Nobody had this like plastered on smile. Nobody was walking through there looking like this. Everybody was in utter shambles. So it just didn't make any sense that Raine was in there looking like this. And sure enough, when Raine herself passed away, this was how they buried her. Now, she didn't have any of the royal treatment when she passed away. She was buried with a very plain headstone, and none of the children showed up to her funeral. So it was just lifelong. And again, if there were something that they didn't like as children, that would have dissipated by the time they were adults. They would have seen that she was a human and that they should have given her some grace. You know what I mean? When you grow up after your parents get remarried, you might not initially like the new spouse, but as you age, as you get into adulthood, you eventually start seeing how they must have also been struggling. You start seeing through the eyes of an adult. You start commiserating with your parent and understanding that they did the best that they could and that it wasn't their fault that they got remarried and wanted love. Everyone wants love. And now you can kind of understand why your parent remarried and the things that you were mad about in childhood purely about them getting remarried dissipate as you get to be an adult because you start understanding. But that did not happen here. And again, this is why I think that they had a problem with her outside of her just being the stepmother. Because if you don't attend a person's funeral that has passed away, somebody as close as your stepmother, and you don't attend their funeral when they pass away, that's a very big marker, a very big indicator that there were some very bitter grievances that went unresolved. Because if there was a time that you're going to put aside all of those hurt feelings and animus, it's at funerals. When someone finally passes away, you're going to put away all of your earthly grievances towards them and just recognize them as a human being who is now crossed over. But that didn't happen here. So there's some really, really deep rooted animus in this family. And unfortunately, it carried over into Charles and Diana's marriage. And I think it did so because Charles himself was also someone who had a very tumultuous, kind of in my opinion, a very fake relationship with his parents. Like, I feel like Charles and his siblings grew up with parents that they also did not like. Probably didn't respect, especially his father. Him and his father seemed like they just were two different people that were not related whatsoever. I think his mom probably did the best she could with what she had at the time because she was the new queen and, had a lot of responsibility. She likely did everything she could, but it obviously was not good enough. And putting her duties before her children was not good enough for Charles, in particular, as the heir. He probably wanted more affection, he probably wanted more love. And these are things that I am going off of based off of his book, based off of his autobiography that Jonathan Dimbleby wrote. He was feeling very left out, feeling very ignored, feeling very a burden to his parents. All of these things are things that he talked about in his book with Dimbleby. Now, Charles, on the other hand, had to pretend a lot more because he's in the public eye. And of course, people expected him to be on good terms with his parents, but he was not. And everybody that knows this story knows that Charles was not on good terms with his parents whatsoever. And it's unfortunate because that whole tumultuous relationship with them led his parents to dominate his life as he got older and tell him things like, okay, you're not going to be able to do what you want to do. You have to do what we want you to do. And nowhere was this more evident than his choice of bride. We all know that he was very much in love with Camilla, but could not be with Camilla because his parents would not allow him. I guess his parents and the aristocracy, right? The whole royal setup would not allow him to be with Camilla because she did not have enough pedigree for them. And they felt that she was just not the type of character, AKA not a virgin, that they wanted Charles to be with. So it just got worse and worse over time. And there's also a video that I want to cue up here, a really great video that I found about that Jonathan Dimbleby interview. Let me pull that up here. And it just kind of like really illustrates how controlling his parents were in his life. And that I'm of the opinion really that they should have just let him marry Camilla. We wouldn't have had all of this shenanigans and nonsense had they done that. But Charles should have also stood up for himself, because what were they going to do? Create another constitutional crisis like his uncle did? Like what were they going to do? At the end of the day, he really held the cards and he's the one that had the leverage, but he just didn't know it. They made it seem like he had to do what they wanted, but Charles should have just held his ground and they would have eventually, I think, given in.
2005, the Prince of Wales finally married the woman he had secretly loved for more than 30 years.
The Prince leading Camilla Parker Bowles out from the shadows on his arm. His former lover and mistress, now his wife, and the new Duchess of Cornwall.
The new Duchess of Cornwall's wedding was no fairy.
Like, he was without sin cast the first stone. This part gagged me because why would you have this sign up? Why would you have this sign up at a person's wedding, bro? Like, come on. But it's true. And they knew it. It
was a low-key affair, held in a public register office, without her new mother-in-law, the Queen, in attendance. There were no royal fanfares, though monarchists from all over did come to witness it.
We are in Windsor for the wedding and very excited about it.
I think it's been wonderful. I'm so glad so many people have turned up to see them. Camilla looked beautiful.
Public support for Camilla and the marriage had been a long time in the making. It was exactly 19 years to the day since the heir to the throne had sensationally made himself and his mistress front page news by deciding to give a television interview to publicise a royal biography by journalist Jonathan Dimbleby.
I had freedom to ask the questions I wanted to ask, editorial control over the material. I was doing an interview that anyone would give their eye teeth to ask. I have a life spent doing journalism, and that's what I was doing then.
During the interview, Dimbleby pressed Charles about the true state of the royal marriage and Princess Diana.
Did you try to be faithful and honourable to your wife when you took on the vow of marriage?
Yes. Absolutely.
And you were?
Yes. Until it became irretrievably broken down.
The surprising admission, the first time any royal had ever publicly confessed to infidelity, cast the woman he had been adulterous with into a harsh spotlight.
Poll ratings were abysmal. She was labelled a marriage breaker, a temptress, and worse.
When the book finally hit the shelves, it contained even more graphic details of the affair. The royal mistress did not respond herself, but friends and family did.
Simon and Carolyn Parker Bowles accuse the Prince of Wales of blaming everyone but himself for his marriage breakdown. They say his revelations in the Jonathan Dimbleby book have dropped Camilla Parker Bowles in a heap. Carolyn is quoted as saying, "It's all right to talk to Camilla, but to tell the world is an entirely different matter." Simon Parker Bowles says, "I'd be more inclined to say poor old Camilla. Prince Charles does not have our sympathy at the moment."
As Charles's popularity declined, a public debate started about his fitness to be king.
If he goes for marriage with Mrs. Parker Bowles as a potential future queen consort, he's going to throw the monarchy into very serious doubt.
Not everyone was against him.
There are absolutely no constitutional implications to being an adulterer. After all, we've had kings who were divorced, we've had kings who were separated, we've had kings who had boyfriends and kings who had girlfriends, and kings who simply, didn't divorce their wives but imprisoned them and beheaded them as well, and they've all been...
When Charles became Prince of Wales, women flocked to him too, hoping they might become Princess of Wales or even his queen. Advice about how to cope with the women who were throwing themselves at him came not from his father, Prince Philip, but from Uncle Dicky, the Earl Mountbatten, the Queen's second cousin and former Viceroy of India.
Just imagine getting this type of advice from a PDF. It made my skin crawl. It just, ugh.
When Charles was 26, Mountbatten wrote to him about sex and life.
I believe in a case like yours that a man should sow his wild oats and have as many affairs as he can before settling down.
Then along came Lady Diana, for whom the Prince of Wales would drop all others, bar one. Prince Charles first met Camilla Parker Bowles at a polo match near Windsor Castle in June 1971. This is probably the first picture of them together. It's certainly one of the earliest, and one of very few. Royal photographers at the time did not think she was anything other than a friend, and certainly
turned up to see them.
Had had an affair with a friend.
Sorry, guys. But imagine, okay, this is 1975. Mind you, she got married in 1973. So she's already married. She's like a married woman at this point, and they're just canoodling and carrying on. But carry on.
And certainly not one who would become a lover. When they met again, Camilla apparently captivated Charles by talking about royal mistresses. Her great-grandmother, Alice Keppel, had had an affair with Charles's great-great-grandfather, Edward VII, 73 years earlier. Edward was a serial womanizer with 11 mistresses. Alice, his favourite, was described as having the sexual morals of an alley cat.
Okay, sorry for the quick pause here, but imagine having 11 people in your rotation on your roster, and then one of them being called the alley cat. Having the sexual morals of an alley cat. Like, imagine 11. Most people might have 2, 3, maybe even 4 folks that they're juggling, but 11. And they label her the loose one. All right, no worries. I just found that very interesting.
Camilla was born Camilla Shand on the 17th of July, 1947, into an aristocratic family. Her father, Major Bruce Shand, was a successful wine merchant. When she was 16, Camilla was sent to a Swiss finishing school to learn social graces. Today, she's widely filmed and photographed, but back then, Camilla managed to avoid most photographers, so there are hardly any childhood pictures. A trend which continued when she started seeing Prince Charles. They were rarely photographed together. They also shared a love of horse riding. Charles as a polo player and Camilla as a fox hunter. They coined nicknames for each other. Camilla became Gladys and Charles Fred. The names came from a legendary radio comedy show, The Goons. Charles had long been an admirer of Spike Milligan, Peter Sellers, Harry Seacombe, and Michael Bentine. Camilla and Charles's affair came to a halt when duty called. As future head of the family firm, Charles was expected to forge a career in the armed forces. He enrolled in the Navy and sailed off into the sunset to spend 6 months in the Caribbean. Camilla found herself a new lover, a close friend of the royal family, Major Andrew Parker Bowles. They married in 1973. Andrew was the son of a minor royal, Derek Parker Bowles, and Anda Trafford, the daughter of a millionaire racehorse owner. His father was close to the Queen Mother, and she became his godmother. When Charles dated Diana, the Parker Bowles were never far away. Andrew was promoted and got one of the best jobs in the army.
Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Parker Bowles commands the Mounted Regiment of the Household Cavalry. He and his wife are close friends of Prince Charles and Lady Diana, and they both spent the weekend with the Parker Bowleses just before Prince Charles proposed.
Well, you know as well as I do, everyone knows he's a marvellous leader and a marvellous man.
The marvellous man chose Parker Bowles to be his head of security when he finally married Diana. His personal bodyguard, riding beside the royal carriage after the ceremony.
Historically, it's been obviously the ceremonial side is the most important side. At the same time, there is the protection side, the security side.
Although at first the royal marriage seemed idyllic, cracks soon began to show, as Charles began a second affair with Camilla.
She was seething and dying inside because she was jealous and angry at his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles.
Charles made matters worse when he tried to make a joke about needing 2 women in his life at a state dinner in New Zealand.
I've come to the conclusion that really it would have been far easier to have had 2 wives. And I could have walked down the middle, directing the operation.
Diana was not amused.
Just imagine, you show up with an angel, like a literal goddess, right? Looking like she looked that night. This is the picture on the top left-hand corner. This is what she was wearing to that state dinner in New Zealand, looking like heaven itself. And you make a joke about wanting to marry your mistress who looks, and I'm not saying that looks are everything, and I'm not saying that that's like the most important thing, but her manners were also as deplorable as her looks. Camilla was very much known to be this very brash, has a very locker room kind of way about her. Like, she was not refined and elegant, in as much as the clip said that she went to finishing school and yada yada yada. She was not refined, and that's why they wouldn't let her marry, I think, Charles in the long run, because she was just not classy and refined. TNO, thank you for joining the chat. Happy Saturday. Diana's mother was a Shand, like Camilla. Are they some sort of cousins? I would imagine so. I didn't see there any real connection there, but let's check, shall we? I have an AI here readily available. And Diana's mother were related. Let's see. Okay, yes. It says multiple genealogical sources confirm that Camilla and Diana are distant cousins. The most commonly cited connection is that they are 7th cousins, with both descending from a shared ancestor of the British aristocracy. So, yeah. Yeah. It looks like they do have a familial ancestor, and that's where the Shand comes in. Interesting, right? So it's good to know. Such a great question, too. I kind of missed that earlier. I didn't see any connection when I was putting things together. Like nothing popped up that said that Camilla and then Diana's mother were family at all. But you learn something new every day. Thank you so much, TNO. So, yeah, she shows up to the state dinner with her husband looking like paradise, and he makes this very tasteless, very humiliating joke. And this is how she usually looked when she was with him. He loved to humiliate her, he loved to embarrass her. And him saying that, oh, that he kept it together until the marriage was irrevocable, irretrievably, I don't know what that word is, but irreparably, until the marriage was irreparably broken. You a lie. Charles, you a lie. You know you a lie. You were cheating on that woman since before that woman even came into your view. Okay. You was cheating on her since cheating on her was cheating on her. Like from day one. There's another very salacious story about how they hooked up right before the wedding, like literally the night before the wedding on a train. And like, come on. Don't play in our face. You know darn well that you were carrying on with your true love, Camilla, way before the marriage to Diana was irreparably broken. It was irreparably broken from day one because you didn't want to marry her. And you played this woman, played in her face the entire time. And it's just really unfortunate. But that's a very like deep and emotional heartache that Diana was going through. And again, looking like this on a scale of 1 to 10, she would have just shattered that whole scale. You can't even measure how beautiful she is. She was one of the most beautiful women on earth. So I don't even understand how you could cheat over and over and over again on a woman like this. And forget the beauty part. Like, even if you took away the beauty, the problem is her character, Camilla's, by the way, character. She just did not have a character that was befitting of the future queen. And that's what most people said at the time. I remember one story I read that she was the kind of person who would like throw her panties up on the table in a card game. Like, it just raunchy, you know what I mean? Unfit for like that public presentation of class and elegance and grace that a royal woman is expected to carry. So of course she's been well refined now, but back in those days she was pretty for all reports, she was pretty out there. So I don't know. I feel like if Diana only had the ability to make Charles be a man, you know what I mean? If she only possessed the ability, she had everything else. There was nothing this woman lacked. She was, pure as the driven snow. She was gorgeous. She was elegant. She was refined. She was worldly. Even for her young age, she like had this aura about her. She was everything, but she just she did not have that ability to like make a man fall to his knees, which was weird because she would make any man fall to their knees. Any man on earth would have fell to his knees worshiping this woman. She was a goddess. So I don't know. Charles is a different breed. TNO, it ain't in the beauty, it's in the booty. What you mean by that? What you mean by that, TNO? You got to clarify that for me. But yeah, sure, it's not in the beauty. But again, Camilla's character didn't match up either. She was not elegant enough for all this. She is now somehow, but I guess times have changed. So again, very deep emotional scars. Diana struggled so much, and you can see it in things like this very early interview that she used to do. She had this, air about her where she was trying to keep it together. She was trying to, keep her head held high. But even here, even as early as her first pregnancy, you could see where there's so much pain in her eyes there was so much hurt. She was already feeling very betrayed by this point because Charles had already let her know by this point that, like, you know, she wasn't the only one. And I can only imagine, you know, how horrible she felt all the time around him. Your husband, you're trying to be everything that he needs you to be. You're trying to hold up yourself as his wife. And not just that, you have the compounded responsibility of being this aristocratic royal woman who's expected to become the next Queen of England. Massive responsibility, huge, huge, huge endeavor to undertake. And she handled it all with such grace and aplomb and, you know, dignity. And he just could not embarrass her. She didn't, in my opinion, do anything wrong. She's very young. She was trying her best, and Charles knew better. He knew better, but he was just a real cad to her. So again, generational curses from both sides. You have both sets of parents in very tumultuous, horrifying relationships with these kids. And then the kids get together, that's Charles and Diana get together and have kids. And the same thing is now repeating with Charles and Harry. Unfortunately, and through no fault of Harry's, he was offered up as a sacrificial lamb from the get-go. For whatever reason, they thought that he was expendable compared to Camilla, who was not expendable. Charles believed that if he offered Harry up, they would leave Camilla alone, let Camilla gain her, you know, pride back and everything else. So Harry going through this with his father is a long time coming. It didn't start 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It didn't start even 10 years ago. This has been going on since his mother passed away. So I feel like we have to really give Harry some grace here and try to understand that these are generational curses as far as the way parents are treating their children in this family as commodities, as collateral damage to whatever they really want. It doesn't seem to me like either set of parents gave up anything to provide a stable environment for their children. They were really selfish in that they wanted what they wanted, and there was nothing that anyone could tell them for the good of anybody else except themselves. So I don't know. It's just really hard to kind of wrap your head around the fact that a father could even do that to his son, but here we are. TNL, thank you so much. Yes, it does. So the goal here will result in digital artwork being given to, I'm going to have like a random like drawing for the people in this live and the people who have donated. So thank you so much for that. Keep your eyes peeled for after the live. I'm going to have that drawing, and then it's one of those like random comment picker type things, but with audience members. So I will have that ready and available sometime, probably by next week. Thanks again, TNO. I appreciate it. Yeah, Chuckles did not love Diana. He cannot love Harry. That's what I mean. Like parents who don't see a need to be selfless when it comes to their children's needs, right? When they see only themselves and what is best for themselves. And in this case, Charles only saw what was best for Camilla. He did not even see Prince Harry as someone worth saving or protecting or anyone from childhood. So again, when we get to where we have the two books, right? Charles wrote about his childhood and his cold reception from his mother and father in the Dimbleby authorized biography. And the focus of that book was his childhood, was the coldness from his parents, and the marriage to Diana, the very difficult time that he had being married to Diana and being in love with Camilla at the same time. It was everything about himself. It was just, oh my goodness, my parents were horrible and my marriage was horrible and nobody really appreciates me for me and da 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 da. Whereas Harry's book talks a lot about the setup, talks a whole lot about the conditions that led to the breakdown. Yes, it's called Spare, and it's obviously about himself. But unlike Charles, he's writing in a language that expresses the fact that he is trying to make sense of this whole setup himself and trying to let us make sense of it. He's trying to put it in layman's terms why the institution would have been placed before him, why his father would have done the things that he did. I feel like, was on a healing journey when he wrote this book as well. So it was probably very cathartic for him to finally come face to face and confront this in black and white, written down. And I'm sure he probably has some kind of like journal or diary that he's kept or something like that. But this was, the first glimpse into his life from this perspective that we were also able to see, And so I think that the differences are very, very clear. And that's why I put up these two side by sides as far as the comparisons. There's some very key differences in Spare versus the Dimbleby biography. Harry had no choice but to explain himself. And Charles was just airing out all his grievances. He just unprovoked was like, hey, you know what? Let me tell you about my horrible upbringing and this horrible situation I got myself into with Diana. Like, no one asked him for that. Whereas Spare, again, was a long time coming. Spare was a very decades and decades and decades of Harry being abused by his father, abused by the system, abused by the press, well before Meghan, abused by pretty much everyone around him. He was not safe. He was not protected. He was not shown an ounce of grace from the time he was probably 13, maybe 14. So it's important to highlight the generational curse that Harry is breaking here. It's extremely important to highlight the fact that unlike his father and his father's father and all the generations before him who were so deviant, so extremely and incredibly deviant, he intends to break that. He is not going to allow anybody to come in between himself and his children. He is not going to allow anything, not duty, not the royals, nothing is going to come between him and his family. And he's already done a more bang up job than his dad could have ever done. And I hate to make these, comparisons and all that, because I don't want to sound petty. But the fact of the matter is, it's very, very obvious that one son has kind of fallen into the royal fold, fallen in line, gotten to a place where they're just, they have to just roll with it. They have to. They're the future of the monarchy and they have to roll with it. And that includes being on the side of Charles. Obviously, Billy famously called his mother paranoid and all the other things that he said about her. And so he has to do that so that he can assure his place in the monarchy. And I fear that, unfortunately, the kids will also have to grow up in that, and they don't have a choice in that matter. They're already pretty much being put out there as the next generation and so on and so forth. So I don't know that they'll have a choice in that matter, but I really hope that those relationships are not as frigid and as unforgiving as the generations before them. But Harry, on the other hand, he is really doing what he can to make sure that this is not a cycle that repeats with his family. And I think that, he's doing a really bang up job. He's doing a really bang up job. And everybody that, still has something to say or, whatever the case might be, it really is just jealousy. We've seen over and over again, especially with the twerking video and the, response to that, it's 100% jealousy. You cannot tell me that having a father who is present in their kids' lives, who put their kids above all else, is a bad thing. I will never be convinced that Harry choosing to place his family first is not how you're supposed to go. Once you have a family, once you get a nuclear family, once you're married, those are the most important people in your life. Unfortunately, it's not your family that you are coming from. It's not your parents, it's not your siblings, it is your spouse and your children, because your spouse is the new parents and your children are the new siblings. Like, everyone's family has to come first. Tano, Harry chose humans over the institution, the inanimate object. Exactly. He did. And you know what? It has to be jealousy at this point, because they see that and they hate that. They hate that he is the human among all of them, and they tried to break him down and strip him of that humanity for years and years and years. They sent him to do backbreaking labor. They tried to enslave him and make him feel less human. And it backfired spectacularly. What do? He set up Sentabale, he set up Invictus. It backfired spectacularly because all of that humanity that he acquired during those times really serves him now, really serves him as the global statesman that he is. And you know it's jealousy because her, like I said at the beginning, her video has gotten like well over 38 million views now. And, you know, if you look conversely, I mean, we're talking crickets. We're talking crickets on the other side. And look, again, not to compare, but let's just be real. Let's be real about what we're dealing with here. Let's deal with the data, okay? Let's deal with the numbers. Their YouTube is getting like regular person numbers. I'm sorry. But regular person numbers, if you go in and look at how they're doing, their Instagram is faring a little bit better. But remember, their Instagram grew quickly and fundamentally as soon as Harry and Meghan started Royal Sussex. So when Royal Sussex came around, that's when their Instagram went from like 3 million all the way up to like 16 million. And remember, Harry and Meghan's broke the record for the most followers in like, I think 24 hours. And then they had like 1 million followers in 24 hours. And then they got all the way up to 11 million followers. And so his brother's Instagram, which was at 3 million prior to Harry and Meghan, all of a sudden grew to 16 million. So the numbers that you're seeing here on the Instagram are like, I would say a good 90% bots. Okay, these are probably a good 80 to 90% bots. It's more indicative of what's going on if you look at their YouTube. That YouTube is stagnant, and YouTube is a very large platform. There's 65 million creators. There's billions of people on YouTube. So you can see that people, there's no interest. They didn't put the bots into the YouTube. They put them on the Instagram because Harry and Meghan had an Instagram and not a YouTube. So you can see clearly that the reality is that they're really just not that interesting and people are just not that into them. If you look at their YouTube page, the most views that they have on any video is from the first video that they released years ago. It had like 6.1 million views and it's just stayed there. And now, you know, even if you look chronologically, the most popular videos are from years ago, starting with that first video they released, I think it was like 4 years ago. And then the next most popular videos are like from 3 years ago and 2 years ago. They have no current updated videos from like this year that are doing numbers at all, or last year or the year before that. You know, it's been several years since they've had like, we'll call it a viral video on YouTube. If you look at their posts, I mean, chicken scratch. These are regular people numbers, 2.2K views. That's likes. Those are regular people numbers. Those are numbers that any of you or I or anyone else could get on their YouTube. So I think that it, again, just highlighting the point that if you were to really take a good look at who has the interest of the people, whose interest is being sparked here as far as the royal family is concerned, clearly Harry and Meghan. And that's clearly what the problem is. Here you have what I was saying, the popularity of the videos, old, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 8 months ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. Like, hello. So I thought that they were super duper popular and everything was so much better for them and everyone loved them so much. And oh my goodness, everyone's into them, so on and so forth. What happened? What happened? I'll tell you what happened. Okay. I'll tell you what happened. You know, they can't. They really can't compete where they do not compare. And we've seen this time and time again. Every time Harry and Meghan do something, they try to pull something similar. They'll reach into their bag of stolen tricks and try to pull out something that mirrors Harry and Meghan's popular whatever they did. So like the Beyonce concert or whatever the case might be, they always show up like a week or two later and try to mimic something that they could maybe get some, viral hit moment from. And they never do. They never do. Ever. And I'm giving it another 2 weeks before we see them start dancing around on a video somewhere, like Leslie, welcome to the chat. Happy Saturday, hon. William and Kate also use Box to help them. What's Box? Is that a program? Oh, bots. Yeah. No, again, and it's nowhere more evident than if you do the research for yourself. Go and look at their YouTube, go and look at their Twitter, go and look at their Instagram. The Instagram is the only one of their social media that has that many followers. And again, it grew the instant Harry and Meghan hit 1 million followers in 24 hours. That's when the Instagram bots were being purchased nonstop to keep up, because it kept growing and kept growing. Harry and Meghan's Instagram channel was growing quickly, immensely, at such a rapid pace, but Bill and Kathy's had to keep up and had to compete. They had to. So they had to buy so many bots. They had to buy more bots to make sure that they had more followers on Instagram, the only platform Harry and Meghan had a social media on. They had to make sure that they had more than them. Had Harry and Meghan gone onto Twitter or YouTube, we would have seen the same thing happen on Twitter and on YouTube. They would have had more and more and more bots and more followers, but they didn't bother with those two accounts or even their Facebook account because they're not on there. They only had to compete with Harry and Meghan on Instagram. So I don't know. If that doesn't prove it, then I don't know what else possibly could. You know what I mean? That's like data. You can lie all you want to. You can put out all the fake polls. You can put out all the little whatever you want to put out, no problem. But the facts and the data do not lie. The numbers do not lie. Them YouTube numbers is regular folk numbers. Nobody is using the bots concentrated into YouTube to get those numbers up. I don't know. Maybe they will after this. I feel like they're always lurking. They lurk in all of our channels. It's so creepy. But this is why. This is why they can't compare. Because Kate went to her first garden party in 2 years and it was barely spoken about. What they did talk about when they did talk about that garden party appearance was her hat. And that she wore that same hat to Harry and Meghan's wedding. And it was also the day after their anniversary. And it's no secret that if Charles and Camilla or Bill and Kathy had the popularity, the global interest, the star power, the sex appeal of Harry and Meghan, there wouldn't be a single story written about the Sussexes in British media in particular. And another one of these really great tweets, the difference between the two is that Kate made her made it her life's mission to marry into the royal family, but with Meghan, it happened by chance and she couldn't care less. So spot the lie in any of these tweets. Like, let me know when they're lying, because these could not be more true. I love I Am Sage. If you're on Twitter, follow her on Twitter, y'all. She's amazing. But yeah, where's the lie? If the royals were truly as popular as these polls suggest, as these YouGov polls suggest, there wouldn't be a single story. They would be like, oh, Harry and Meghan, whatever. Is that a story we want to run? No. We got this going on over here. This is big news over here. And it's not big news. The British media didn't barely even write about this garden party. I didn't see any stories. I mean, I'm not looking or anything like that, but even like I see tweets by chance. I see, little clips and stuff by chance. I didn't see nothing. No, we will. I promise you. Watch. Within the next month, we are going to have them two dancing somewhere, doing something, getting jiggy with it, getting wiggy with it in Kate's case. Like, there's going to be some random place that they have music playing, and then the music will have inspired them to dance. Mama Middleton's life work was kitty cat marrying well. Absolutely, Tano. Abso-freaking-lutely. And that's the difference. That's like the main difference. Everybody can see straight through them. We see straight through you, baby girl. We know exactly who you are. We've seen you. You're no longer in sheep's clothing. The veil has been lifted. We know who you are. You can hide behind 10 pounds of wiggery. You can hide behind all the fancy clothes. You can hide behind the titles. You can hide as much as you want to from yourself, but you aren't hiding yourself from any of us. We know you. We know mean girls. We know jealous Karens when we see them. And your husband's not much better at all. We know a jealous Karen when we see him. So I feel that this is the crux of the issue as it stems today. The reason why Harry had to really get up out of there and shake that spot was because he was determined not to live the same life, not to put his kids through the same thing, not to have to deal with all of the nonsense and the shenanigans that come with being a royal child. They are raising up Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet in the manner that regular people do. Regular people protect their children. Regular parents would sacrifice anything, everything for their children. So people like to say that, like, oh yeah, it's Meghan, but the fact of the matter is she was pregnant pretty much just a few months after they got married. And he was already thinking, this is my child. I am going to protect not just my wife, who obviously he loves to bits, but his child. So he is thinking in terms of a human being. He is thinking as any good father would think. He is not going to allow the establishment or the curses that came with his bloodline, the curse of thinking that you have the right to destroy someone from the inside out, and not just someone, but people, civilizations, entire continents. You have the right to go over to wherever you want to go and destroy and decimate, pillage, take advantage of, completely ruin a people because God told you so. Oh, and look, right here in the Bible, here's where you're supposed to really like being a slave too. Look, God also says you should love this. Love me as your colonizer, love being a slave, treat me as you would treat God, yada, yada, yada. This is how they think. So his family very much has this mentality still. And Harry's like, ew, no, heck no. What do you mean? You know, like, why would you think that in today's day and age, given all of the advancements that humanity has made, that you still have the right to destroy someone? Charles still thought to himself, I can destroy my son. He's expendable to me. Who's important is my mistress. Still has that colonial mentality that he has the right to destroy whomever he wants lives because he's the king or the future king and has royal blood, and nothing he does is wrong because God told him to do it. So Harry's like, I'm going to definitely change that with my children. I'm definitely not going to live by that standard. This is just kind of a throwback to everything that Diana did, everything that she instilled in him. And he is the man that he is today because of her. So, you know, kudos to Prince Harry and to Meghan. They're doing such a bang up job, such a great job of this thing called parenting. It's not easy. Being a parent in any respect is just not easy, whether you're a royal or a regular, what's it called? Not community, commoner. Well, community too. Whether you're just a regular common person or you're an aristocratic royal with titles, it just doesn't matter. It's not easy to be a parent in any respect. So kudos to Harry and Meghan taking it upon themselves to put their kids and their family first. This is the most beautiful thing to come out of this whole, you know, debacle with these people. And I'm so glad that Harry is breaking this cycle of, you know, terribleness in his family. So yeah, I mean, thank you guys so much for joining me for this live. It's been really great, been really special. If you enjoyed this live, as always, the channel link to join the membership is right up above. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for the grace from yesterday's live being missed. Whatever you're doing for the rest of the weekend, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Please remember to be kind, and I will see you guys next time. Bye for now.